All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Nick checking in with you on Thursday, November the 83rd. That's our COVID time that we keep here in South Carolina, Pete.
Gotcha.
Just a couple of days after the election, I'm privileged to have a very special guest with us today. South Carolina Realtors, please welcome Pete Kopf, NAR's Realtor Party Director. We're here to talk a little bit about some election results and about RPAC and what we do during election time. Pete is the principal and broker of Kopf Hunter Haas Realtors in Cincinnati, Ohio. And he served as their local association president in 2011. And more recently was president of the Ohio Realtors in 2017. Pete, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks, Nick. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be with South Carolina Realtors today. And a wise man once told me never delay gratitude. So before we get into all your just wonderful questions, I just want to say to you and Owen and the entire leadership team, including Lindsay and Sarah, for their commitment to both advocacy and the Realtor Party, that thank you for navigating South Carolina Realtors through 2020. It's been a challenging year, but I do believe that the opportunities that were presented to us will make us better, and you guys did an outstanding job. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete. It has been a privilege this year to work with our leadership. You know, we started the year with some great expectations. COVID hit, and then suddenly we were presented with challenges, and with the help of RPAC at the local, state, and national level, we turned those challenges into opportunities for our members and kept the doors open for business and continue to move forward. This year, I don't know if you've seen our market numbers, Pete, but we're on track to have probably either it's going to be a top 3 year in sales for us. The market has took off right there at the middle of April and hasn't slowed down. Our membership is at its all-time high. We just hit 25,000 realtors for the first time in our history.
Wow.
And, you know, everybody loves South Carolina. We have a lot of your folks moving down here, Hilton Head, Charleston, Greenville, the Fort Mill area around Charlotte are all booming. And I'd be remiss not to include the home of my beloved Gamecocks in Columbia. We have a lot of folks from Ohio, Michigan, and we just love South Carolina, and we love y'all for loving us. We appreciate all that you do. I know you've been a busy year. You've had a busy year, and I know this week is busy with all of our NAR meetings. So to keep us on time and let you get back to your work, wanted to ask just a few questions, if I could, about this election cycle. And we're still fresh. We still got a lot of elections that are still in the counting phase, recounting phase. So let's jump right in, if you don't mind.
Sure, let's do it.
So give me a little overview, or give our members a little overview, kind of a national picture of what RPAC did that led up to the election day this week, and how did we do across the country and in South Carolina?
Yeah, so thanks for asking, Nick. So let's talk about RPAC's role, first of all. I mean, so RPAC's role at the local, state, and national level, we get the RPAC trustees together, and these are people that screen and vet legislators to see if they're realtor champions. So what's a realtor champion? A realtor champion is a legislator that has supported property interests. And when it comes down to it, you know, we are a fairly selfless, and when I mean selfless, I do mean selfless industry where, you know, we're into it not just to sell houses, but for making our communities better and vibrant. And so we support those realtor champions through RPAC, and you know, the trustees do a great job. I know I get a lot of questions about, you know, that are we incumbent friendly, and the answer is yes. If there's somebody that's in office, we do talk to them and work with them and build those relationships. And if they have a proven track record that they're going to support property interests, then that's somebody we're going to continue to want to see making these decisions with the legislature. So RPAC appears to be trending towards 100% success in South Carolina. So you had 4 opportunity races implemented in the state, and you were 4 for 4. Senator Graham, Representative Timmons, Representative Clyburn, who joined us in the May NAR meeting, who was fantastic, and Representative Bryce. And then I think there are some that have already been called, but most of those are all trending towards success. And I'm looking at some information that I was given yesterday, but I know all 4 of those are winners. So, and then still in question, I think in the 1st district is the Cunningham Mace race. And obviously we remain neutral in that race. And it looks, I think from our discussion prior to jumping on here live, it looks like Mace has a slight lead, or looks like she's leading. So we'll see how that plays out.
That's great. You know, it is, you know, the way I like to explain it to our members is, you know, RPAC helps us make friends before we need them. It's very, and the simple way that I like to explain it to members that aren't maybe very politically engaged or active in the political process is the same thing as when you meet, let's say you're in the grocery store and there's somebody in the bread aisle picking out a loaf of bread, and you're not going to walk up to them and say, "Hey, I've got this great house that you would love on 123 Main Street," right? You would introduce yourself, and as weird as that might be in a grocery store today, but you would build a relationship first before you talk business. And RPAC helps us open those doors to make sure that we have the ability to have that conversation with the elected official so they understand our issues.
Right on the money, on the bread, I mean.
Yeah, I have an old saying that I know you've heard before. I didn't come up with it, but you know, but my members are probably sick of me saying this. But if we're not at the table, we're on the menu, and I see it happen over and over. So
one of the ones I like was from Harley Ruda from Ohio, who was our 91 state or national president, and he always said, "If real estate's your career, then politics is your business," and it's the same deal. You got to be involved whether you like it or not.
Absolutely. So, you know, during campaign season, we actually release a voter recommendation guide with a voter scorecard, and I often will get an email that says, "Nick, I don't contribute to the PAC because I believe that the PAC only supports Republican candidates, or that they only support Democrat candidates." Obviously, because this broadcast is on Facebook and is going to the public in a sense, so the unsolicited class. So we're not soliciting for RPAC today, but how do we make sure that RPAC is bipartisan, and how do we communicate that to our members?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I mean, just simply, I have this conversation with people all the time in our industry, especially our members, that you know, I'm not investing in RPAC because you do invest money in candidates from a party that I don't follow or I'm not part of. And you know, I look at them and I tell them, I said, "Hey, look, are you married? Yeah. Well, do you have sisters and brothers? Yeah. You have cousins? Yeah. You have grandparents? Yeah. You have friends? Yeah." I said, "I guarantee you take one person in your sphere of your life and you tell me you agree with them on every issue." And they look at me and they say, "No." And I said, "That's the same thing we do. We are bipartisan on purpose. We work with both people or both sides of the aisle. And the reason we do it is that we have got to be really localized when we're thinking about these candidates and who and what they represent. We look at them purely on property interests. We look at legislative issues that they support or don't support that affect us and who we serve in our community. And so that's how we do it. And I'll tell you, this year, our dollars went 51% Democrat, 49% Republicans, and it flip-flops back and forth.
Whoa, wait a minute. Say that again.
This year, our dollars went 51% to Democrats and 49% to Republicans.
All right. I just wanted everybody to hear that, because I can't tell you how many times I get calls that says, "Oh, you only give to one party or the other." And and it's great to have the actual information.
Yeah, I mean, let me explain it to you this way. I've got a list here, so I want to read these to you. Here's how we determine who to support. Individual action taken to advance NAR legislation, co-sponsor of NAR legislation, their congressional leadership position, so where they sit, what kind of committee they're on, so their committee assignments, their voting record, I mean, that's one of the biggest ones. Are they engaged in DC? I mean, hate to say it, but some of these folks aren't very engaged in DC and not doing their job. Are they accessible in state? Do they come back to South Carolina and do they meet with their constituents? And then the race competitiveness is big. So if we've got a tight race and we've got a Realtor Party champion that we've supported in the past and we want to support now, we might spend more money on that candidate to make sure that they're still in place to support the legislation that's going to be best for us, our family, our community. So, I mean, 51, 49% this year. We could go the other way next year, but this year, that's where the numbers work.
I think it's important for our members to understand just how vital it is to moving the realtor agenda forward, to work with those members of Congress, regardless of their party affiliation, and solely look at them whether they support real estate issues or not. And I think that's a critical component of explaining just why RPAC does what it does and how it works. Thanks, Pete. We talked a little bit about offline. We talked a little bit about the impact COVID's had on our state and other states across the country, and it made voting a little different. We saw states with all kind of various voting tools to make sure people were able to vote safely this cycle. Did NAR undertake any interesting initiatives to help get the vote out this year?
Just a little bit. I mean, I think a lot of associations, which I'm sure some of your locals and most likely South Carolina realtors, if not this year in the past, have done voter registration drive for realtors. And also for your community across the way. I'll tell you one funny thing is I got Uber Eats prior to the election quite a few times due to COVID. And even in my Uber Eats, I was reminded to vote as part of my receipt. So, I mean, we're seeing that outreach everywhere. I think NAR has really pushed the needle. I mean, we were simple this year as far as Realtor Party goes, Nick. We talked about vote, act, invest. Vote, act, invest. It's the most important thing we can do is vote, act, and invest as realtors. So we did pivot in place videos that really showcase why people need to vote. And the other thing is we talked leading up to the election to make a plan. Like that's where I think people really and why we had the highest voting turnout ever is people made a plan. They voted early, they mailed in their ballot, or they voted on the day election. So I mean, people made a plan. It was important to them. And by golly, if our country votes, then no one can argue. And if you don't vote, then you have no argument. So I think people realize that. I think people got out. And it's kind of cool to see that voting is trendy now. Everyone wants to vote.
That was cool. There were so many Facebook posts yesterday, right, with the I voted stickers.
Oh yeah,
that was great. I voted in person on Tuesday, and I guess because of the early voting, I was in and out in less than 5 minutes. So it worked out really well, and record turnout in our state, like I'm sure in most. Let me ask you one thing, just for our members to have a little kind of national perspective. In our state, COVID hit middle of March. We worked closely with our governor's office and local mayors around the state. We kept real estate open, but that wasn't the case in some states. Can you tell us about some of your experience? I know you've been meeting with members all over the country. Just how bad did it get in some other states?
Yeah, so let me start with some context. So if you look at them, there are 9.5 million jobs in the real estate rental and leasing industry, and every 2 home sales generates 1 job in the country. So let's start there. When COVID hit in March, our numbers said that there were between 400 and 460,000 homes across the US that were in pending status. Okay, so that's really important. Only 17 17 states deemed real estate essential right out of the chute. I hope to God your members know what a job you guys did. And it wasn't just this year. Making South Carolina realtors and making real estate essential in South Carolina kept your members working. If you had a job this year, Nick, that was it. And so kudos to you and your public policy team and your leadership team for doing that. Because if you look at Pennsylvania and Michigan, I'm in Ohio, so right next to me, Pennsylvania, 8 weeks from the March 19th date that they were not essential. That means they couldn't work. Pretty important then that NAR was able to get independent contractors available for the unemployment assistance, the PPP, the EIL. I mean, that was super important because we were taking care of the immediate needs. But let's go back. Michigan had 4 to 6 weeks where they couldn't work. And so if anything was a victory in 17 of our states and then 33 total right out of the chute, like South Carolina, it was that your members were able to work. They were able to put food on the table. They were able to send their kids to school. They were able to pay their mortgage payment. I mean, it was an incredible win for South Carolina realtors. And if that didn't pay their dues dollars, then I don't know what would. So kudos to you guys, but it was difficult in many states. And if you look at the two that really suffered, I think those were the two big ones, Michigan and Pennsylvania. And I don't want to beat up on them because both states, they had relationships just like South Carolina, but they had to get their governors to a point where they felt it was safe for real estate to be actively essential. And, you guys have done a great job building your relationship with your governor. And I'm just super impressed with what you all did. And I'm sure South Carolina realtors are excited about it too.
Well, thanks, Pete. It was, I tell you, despite the fact that we were able to keep the doors open, there were still quite a few members that were impacted by the slowdown in the economy. And I've got to give some kudos to Todd Timmons and the staff at SC Do, which is our unemployment division in South Carolina. You're right. Having that independent contractor, the availability for ICs to get unemployment benefits was a game changer. There's no doubt about it. And it was very helpful in South Carolina too.
Well, and as a small broker, I'll just tell you, Nick, I applied for PPP. It helped me keep my employees in place, which allowed my agents to be productive and have that support. So, I mean, there's so many ways to look at this, but thank you. I mean, great work in South Carolina. And I know your relationship with Governor, I think it's Governor McMaster, right?
That's correct. Henry McMaster.
Yeah, that paid off, man. Good job. And that wasn't just this year. You built that relationship for some time. So good job.
Absolutely. Thank you. So let's look ahead a little bit. The elections are almost over, right? We still, we probably still have a few days or weeks. Right. I don't know, before we finalize everything. But I know we're already looking at 2021 at our state legislature. Can you give us a quick update on upcoming federal issues for NAR? We have a lame duck session, and then I guess the new Congress coming in January.
That's right. That's right. Well, I don't want to steal a ton of thunder from Shannon McGann and her team. I hope everyone's going and going to be registered to be a part of the virtual annual conference here. But a couple things I'll tell you. We were lucky that the Senate on September 30th passed the continuing resolution that included a year extension on the National Flood Insurance Program. That's a big deal for us. Also, the surface transportation funding was part of that, and that'll obviously important, but also keep jobs and transportations going during this time. So that was really big right now. I'll tell you two things we're looking at is remote online notary. That we're really trying to get some things in place so that it's more universal and more states can take advantage of that. It was really important in the pandemic, but that's the way of the future. We need to have that in place so that people can do those remote online notaries and closings virtually. And then I'll tell you, there's a couple other things coming down the pipe that we're going to have to keep hitting. And those things, I think that you'll hear from Shannon McGann as we get into that conference.
No, I think that's a great plug too. I'll put a link to the conference in the in the Facebook comments today. And if for members that are watching, if you haven't signed up, there is a governance only login that you can check in if you are not taking advantage of the incredible educational opportunities that are being offered. Unfortunately, we're not able to be in New Orleans at this time.
Yeah, we call that a teaser, Nick, where I come from. So that was a tease to get you all registered for the conference. So the other thing I want to tell you is, I know a lot of our members are really concerned about the eviction moratorium that ends on January 1, and we are as well, and NAR has worked tirelessly on that subject. I will tell you that when you look at property investment and people that own investment property, 40% are mom and pop. 25% of our members own investment property. January 1 comes, the way this thing is set, we're going to have a lot of people that are homeless and they're going to be evicted. And then it's going to be hard for them to find housing because they just were evicted. Not to miss out on all these landlords that can't pay their bills and their properties are going to be foreclosed upon. So I know in Ohio and many states, they've worked with their states to try to do some rental assistance programming. I don't know what you're doing in South Carolina. I'm sure it's a subject that you guys are working on, if not already in place. But please know that the National Association is working with the states to do their best, because that is my biggest concern in the future, is that the states are going to be looking to fill those budget gaps with all this money that's going to be lost and needed to put people in housing, et cetera. And by golly, our advocacy is never going to be more important. But I hope you guys are, I'm sure you guys are in the middle of that in South Carolina.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. Yeah, it's we're looking at a possible scenario where landlords, property owners are, looking at 7, maybe even 8 months of not collecting any rent this year, and somewhere at some point, we reach a tipping point, right? And in January, I've talking with Shannon and the NAR team. It looks like this lame duck session may provide some assistance for landlords, which is what we're counting on. But it's definitely going to be a possible nightmare scenario where you have all these folks evicted, you have landlords who can't pay their property taxes, and in South Carolina we have we're down to 2 months inventory, and these homes now are a lot more valuable than they were 12 months ago. What's the landlord's incentive to keep renting versus selling it? It's going to create some major issues. But
NAR is working hard on it, and I know you all are as well. So thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Well, we're running up almost at the end of our time here. Any parting thoughts, closing thoughts you'd like to share with our members?
Well, I would just tell you that we appreciate you. I know if you're watching here, you're involved in the advocacy. We need to continue to be involved. There's 3 things you can do, and President Vince Malta made sure that I beat the drum on this all year. I know you voted, so let's talk about the advocacy part real quick. Use your voice. There's 2 ways to think about this. We can either sit back and let it happen to us, or we can be involved and make it happen for us. And when we make it happen for us, I talked about us being a selfless group. We are selfless because in the end, what we do for a living helps people, but it also makes our communities a vibrant, great place to work and call home. So I would just ask you to continue to use your voice and know how important your RPAC dollars, not just this year, but in future years, because those RPAC dollars keep our legislators in place that really promote vibrant communities, promote property interests. And so I just, Nick, I'm just happy to have the opportunity to be with you all. It's fun to watch South Carolina realtors and all the success you've had. And I'm always here to support you all if you need me.
Well, I appreciate that very much, Pete. And I've told this to our president, Owen Tyler from Charleston, and our leadership team many times this year. I know this is not the year you wanted when you started our NAR leadership team, Vince Malta, and all of our leaders across the country. They had a different vision for their year of leadership, and what you have done, what our other leaders have done across the country is, you know, we've made lemonade out of lemons, and we've engaged more members than in the history of our association, right? With these virtual platforms, we've been able to reach more members. We definitely miss the personal interaction, you know, and we'll get back to that. But this gives us the ability to reach so many more of our members that we've never done before, and we've got to take the silver lining out of all of this and move it forward to continue to get the message out to our grassroots, which is our strength. You know, we stand on the shoulders of our members. They're the strength of this organization, and certainly the strength behind RPAC. So, Pete, thank you for your leadership and all your efforts, and thank you for being with us today. I'm going to sign out for all the realtors that are watching. I hope that you all stay safe, stay realtor strong, and we'll be back. I'll be back in touch with you a little bit later in the week. Pete, hang on for a second. I'm going to send us offline here now. Thanks.